Participate in a conversation with once conservative, now liberal Midwest mastered prepared special education high school teacher and a self-proclaimed devil's advocate, East Coast conservative liberal, baccalaureate prepared registered nurse. These two strangers met, became instant friends, and realized their conversations are candid and epic. So join us weekly, ask us questions, and listen to these profoundly candid friends try to solve the world's problems, one discussion at a time.
Hey, welcome to another great week of The New Theory with Monet and Jared, aka TNT with MJ. I am Jared.
I'm Monet.
And together we're teaching minds.
And nurturing souls.
And right off the bat, we both want to recognize and just thank our supporters, our fans, for your patience while we're transitioning into our new schedule. As you've figured it out, I'm a teacher, she's a nurse, and we both just started our new job. Well, not new jobs, but
new job for me.
So we started today was both of our first days back.
Yeah.
And so it's been a little bit of a stressful weekend getting together or getting ourselves together for Monday or for today. And so again, just thank you guys. Thank you for the continued support. Like always, we're dedicated to bringing you guys a quality product every week. So with that being said, we're just going to hit this. We're just going to start with swinging for the fences, as the phrase is, with this. And something that I've been noticing the past several episodes or the past several recordings that you and I have done, Monet, and you and I have talked about it in private, but I think it's important that we kind of have this conversation with our audience listening that I guess I'm just going to call you out on it and say there's just been, I've noticed a lot of times where you feel the need, or I pick up the need that you need to defend me when you're playing devil's advocate, sort of a protection thing, big sister looking out for little brother, that type. And so I guess what I want to say is, I recognize it. I know now you do. But I just want to give you opportunity to speak on that as to just why was that? Why is that? So, cause I view it as, I'm a big boy. I know what I'm saying.
Yeah. So basically it was brought to our attention that it seems like Monet, stops you from speaking your full mind and almost like cuts you off or kind of takes away from the point that you're trying to make by saying, no, don't be that harsh. You don't mean that, Jared.
Yeah.
Almost placating you when you're trying to speak very candidly, because that's the whole point of the podcast.
Right.
Needless to say, through the private conversations that we've had and us delving into, where is this coming from, Monet? Why are you stopping me? And it's a defense mechanism. It goes back to inherent trauma that as a minority in America that we faced. We want to not have what happened to the Freedom Riders. Okay, it was 2 white men and a black man killed because they felt as though what they were doing, they were working within the Constitution. They are American citizens. They should just be able to voice their opinion, and people were actually killed for that. And I think with us discussing the topics that we're discussing, whether it be political, race, whatever, professional, I feel like the retaliation, because one, this is very new to you. It's like the wool has been pulled from your eyes and you are outraged and you are speaking so. And I'm like, please don't get that excited, because one, you live in Arkansas, and two, you're
right. I got you.
And I don't want any retaliation to come to you or the children. So it's almost like I want to soften it, which if you're going to have a candid podcast, you have to be candid, unadulterated, and you have to be able to speak. And for me, I'm just like, please, God, don't let anything happen to Jared I'm all the way out here in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He's out there at what part of Arkansas?
Northwest Arkansas.
Northwest Arkansas.
So a little, I mean, I would say that we're fairly progressive in regards to the state.
Yes, you are.
So,
and that's my ignorance. That literally, I mean, like, you know, because I don't know. And I'm just like, please don't let anything happen to him, because that kind of talk gets the ignorant people excited and angry, and gives them, makes them have a justifiable reason to be rude and hurtful.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I just, you know.
But I would argue at the same time that the circles that are run in either agree with us or flat out don't. You know, there's really no middle ground.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm not trying to, I hate putting a binary situation on it, but that's the truth in the circles that I run in. So they either agree or they don't. And if they don't, they're just not going to talk about it, or they're not going to bring it up.
Jared, what if you're at a restaurant? What if you're out with the kids in Cedar? Like, I don't want anybody to say anything sideways to you. I don't want anybody to threaten you. I am, I don't know.
Well, then let that be a result of that interaction and that that real-time interaction, and not a result of this podcast. Because really, what are the odds right now, to be honest, because we are still, I mean, we're going real, you know, let's be real. I mean, this is still a fledgling project, you know, and we're not working full time to push it into something more than what it is. And whatever happens, happens. But my point is, what are the odds of someone here and now recognizing, one, my face or my voice?
I know, Jared.
You know, so, but
you're right.
But no, all that to be said, you know, that's just me. That's me being devil's advocate. But my point being, it goes back to what you were saying. If we're going to have a candid conversation, I'm just going to be real. I don't placate you.
No.
You know, whatever you got to say it, and I'm going to let you speak it, because it needs to be heard. So it's reciprocating the respect. That's kind of where I'm coming from on it. So
yes.
I'm a big boy. I know what I'm saying. My children and they know what's going on. They know that you and I have these conversations, and they know that there are people out there that don't like to hear what we have to say. But does that make it any less important? Absolutely not. You know, so that was just me. So,
well, I'm happy we discussed it. So therefore, I'm not going to be stopping you from talking your hate speech. Like, let me stop.
Hey now.
See, that's me being devil's advocate.
It's all good. No. Well, let's just be real. I mean, you and I both know people that consider what we're talking about hate speech.
And it's not.
It's really not. If you listen to what we have to say, we're calling out reality.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I would like to say that we're also speaking truth and speaking love.
Yes,
and sure. Advocating humanity and not division. And if
that is our objective.
And if you see it as otherwise, then might I encourage you to self-reflect and look in the mirror and wonder why.
Why are you so angry about what we're talking about?
Exactly. Why does it offend you? Why does it bother you? Why does it make you uncomfortable?
It shouldn't. It shouldn't.
You're right. It shouldn't.
It should make you question everything about your circle, your personal circle, and then want better for everyone.
But does that make that person any less of a person? You see what I'm saying? You know, because if the argument can be made, well, you're attacking my identity. You're attacking who I am. Really? I don't recall directly calling you anything.
No.
So, the fact that you take it that way says more about you than what I've got to say. I'm sorry. So anyway.
So we're hitting it. All right. So we have another list of questions for each other.
Absolutely.
Are we trying to
have at it? Go first.
Well, it's a great segue, because the questions that we were asking each other, my first question to you is, what do you think has to happen for our country to come back together?
Well, like you said, that's a great segue, because what we just got done talking about, it has to start there. It has to start with the individual. And reckoning. I've been spending a lot of time on this question, and I've come to the conclusion that if we can recognize that we're living one side of history, right? If we can recognize that we're living only one side of history right now, knowing full well that there's a whole other side of that very history, then we need to examine that other side of history, and therefore examine how and why we're in the current history we're in.
How did we get to this situation?
Exactly. So, yeah, I just said, first off, starting with yourself, but then looking at it from a big picture. But both have to be done. But it needs to start with the self, and recognizing that there's more than what you've known and what you've grown up to know. We are products of decisions that have been made well before our time. And we are not responsible for that. So therefore, we cannot be held accountable for it.
No, but we are responsible for changing the narrative so that all of the truth, there you go.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But it starts with recognizing that we're part of a system, and it's because of that system, we are who we are by default. But does that make us inherently evil? Let me go back and use the words. We have to recognize that we're in a part of a system of racism.
We do have to recognize that, period.
Period. It's there. It's a system. You can't deny it. You cannot deny it. And if you choose to deny it, then you choose to live in willful ignorance.
And you're part of the problem. You're a part of its continued existence.
Right, because you refuse to acknowledge that the problem exists. Therefore, no change can be made. So we have to recognize that we're part of a racist system. And as such, because the system is designed to keep the white man up and the black man down, I'm sorry to say, I want to repeat it again. I said this a few episodes ago. By default, white folks are racist. Now, yeah, I saw you. Now, does that make us inherently evil? Absolutely not. Okay?
No.
So recognize that. And so I get it's as I'm sitting here talking, it's a really loaded question, because we have to start with ourselves, recognize that we're part of a system and that we're not evil, and we have to change the definition of a couple of different words and expand our horizon and perspective on what these words mean. Therefore, we can grow and learn from that and expand our own horizon, and then we can really start making effective change.
Yes. Period.
But that's just me.
I think a lot of the push to not change, a lot of the apprehension is because the comfort that you live in with the current status quo.
Yeah.
Now, acknowledging that the past, but they're like, you're going to take all away from me. No, we can still acknowledge that Washington was the president at the time, and he defeated, the British.
Yeah.
We can talk about that. But we can also say, and this was helpful and that was helpful. But at the same time, this man was engaged in a society that helped perpetuate the current society we live in.
Absolutely.
And what is good and what is bad about it. And then, and then move on. We can still love this country.
Yeah.
We can. I mean, a lot of us, regardless of what race you are, or even what level of socioeconomic status you're in, we are accustomed to a certain aesthetic, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And when we went shopping, especially I would say May or like June, when some of the stores were opening, we were kind of floored. We were like, yep, this does not look like the America we're used to. You know, people, the level of traffic, you know, man, we're not accustomed to this. Not that, you know, we like traffic.
Right.
But I mean, that is just a small snippet. It's almost like an example of what, you know, a real socialist society. Look, we don't live in a socialist society.
No, we don't.
We're very, and by saying that, we are acknowledging that we do love our country the way it is. To us, I mean, not our
right.
behaviors.
No, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, but we love the freedoms that we are afforded. Unfortunately, some are just arrogant with their, you know, like, I don't want to wear it. But it's like, okay, listen, you may not want to, but this is the information that you don't even have to be a scientist, okay, to see that if it shows that if you wear the mask, okay, and you social distance, forget medicine, forget finding out if you're positive with COVID or not. It's like, okay, it's starting to show like, okay, I guess it's working. People can argue that it's dissipating. Yeah, well, people are still getting it. So if we continue to do, you know, these particular behaviors that unfortunately are uncomfortable, but, you know, and I'm just using that situation as an example of, you know, what happens when, you know, you implement change and we work together. This whole movement in this country, you know, is going to take all of us.
It really is. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Well, and you brought up science, so that's a real good segue into
science.
my question to you. So for our listening audience, I'm going to remind them of the several times that you have reminded us through different conversations that we are not primates. We have evolved. We're smarter than that. I find that comment very poignant, considering that in one of the, it's truly it's truly bipartisan. It's not even partisan, much less bipartisan. But it's much like the Atlantic, but it's an international, nonpartisan investigative journalist magazine, online magazine. It's called The Correspondent. They recently had an article out that it was discussed that there's a resurgence of quote unquote race science. In fact, the interviewee, the author of the book, who is the author of Superior, I forgot the second part of that, but the name of the book is called Superior. But she stated that race science never really left. And so how do you respond to that, as well as race science in general? And you might want to start out with explaining what race science is for our listeners who may not be very familiar with that.
Well, unfortunately, it was psychologists that determined
Jefferson.
Okay.
Just saying.
Yeah, we're going back there. That justified Caucasian superiority over Black superiority, African superiority. And with that mindset, by putting, because we hold science with value. I mean, think about it. The world was flat until a scientist, okay, said, guess what? I actually think it's, you know, round. I mean, we could say it was Columbus or whomever, right. But like, the reality is somebody had to investigate and say, so when you're coming up with, you know, things that change the world and then you slap the label of science on it, people hold that to be really true. And they hold it to be like, you know, this is evidence-based, this is real. So when you say something like, oh yes, we're genetically designed superior, and because I'm a scientist and I'm a politician and I'm someone that is revered, you're going to be taken seriously. And with that happening, you raise generations of people with this horrific false sense of superiority based on the arbitrary truth of race. Like, so what? You know, and we can say all we want, all lives matter, we're all God's children, but the reality is you have that position to say that. When it's been ingrained in your psyche that, you know, you being born this way makes you automatically inferior, and you have to claw through the negative ideology that you're not good enough because of what you are. And then coupled with generational trauma, it's like, why are we all like running around butt naked and crazy? Well, because evolution happens. And when you start hitting those lobes and you start enlightening and you start, you know, okay, so had it been like, I don't know, 30 years ago, I mean, not even 30, and then let's think about the 1930s to the 1950s. Automobiles were still relatively new. So a backfire, if you heard a gun and a backfire of an automobile, you would be like, oh, somebody's shooting. Yeah. But now, before we've been desensitized. But at the same time, instead of stopping, the fight or flight response has been dampened because we have been taught to investigate. We've been encouraged. I mean, think about it. We go to school and they keep exposing us to more literature, to more scientific research. They encourage us to do it. They encourage us to look for yourselves. Therefore, we don't even look around for somebody else's approval anymore. We're like, no, let me do it myself. Investigation has such an ethereal word to us now, meaning to us now.
Yeah.
So I say this, I mean, and I know this is one of our conversations where I feel like we're almost beating a dead horse. And for especially people that are listening to us, they already are well aware that, you know, we are enlightened people. We're no longer primates. But I say this to say, look at the people that are still using the primitive mindset of fear and anger. Like, right. You know, those for us now should be the last resources.
Yeah.
I don't want to be afraid of nothing, and I don't want to hate anybody.
Right.
And if you're subscribing to that, you know, oh, look, they're going to take my house because I'm white. Ain't nobody taking your house.
Right.
We still live in America.
Yeah.
And only so many, I mean, really, it's like, and if we as Americans allowed it to get to circa 1930, 1940 Germany, then we are failing our Constitution and we're failing each other.
Absolutely.
Okay? We can only do better. And if you are satisfied with the America that is now, we don't hate it. We can do better.
Absolutely.
And I mean, and we are really educated. And if you call yourself educated, then you should be asking yourselves, you know, you should, like, how did we get to this place?
Yeah.
And why would you say that, Jared? Why do you think that's one of your favorite two words?
Hit me. Remind me, my favorite two words.
No, that's fine. No, because we were talking about it like 2 days ago. Greed and gluttony.
Oh yeah, greed and gluttony. Yep. Yeah.
That's how we've gotten here.
But no, I mean, you made it a point to bring up our fan. I'm just going to call it fan base. Let's just call them our followers. Not to say that we're a cult. Just a little throwing that out there. Anyway, thank you, fans. Love you.
Yes. You're not a cult.
No, you say that they might be tired of hearing what we're saying. Well, love the support, but at some point, the message is no longer for them. The message is for those that don't understand or continue to refuse to hear it. I mean,
that's what this is for. Like, these should be learning tutorials, like how to get out of archaic mindset. Listen to MJ, TNT with MJ to help you get out of that and recognize the issues within yourself. Not that we're perfect.
No, not at all. And not that we're the spokesman of our the color of our skin, I'm not going to say race because we can talk about this at another time, but race is an absolute social construct.
It is a social construct.
You can call us by the color of our skin, but that doesn't make it our race.
No.
So I just throwing that little caveat out there.
Because that's the next level of evolution. Because when you realize, wait, hold on. So you mean to tell me, yes, it's unnecessary, arbitrary. It's not.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely
pointless.
Arbitrary.
Are you a good person or no? Because that's really what it boils down to.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be around assholes.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be around an evil person. And
right.
We have asshole moments. Like I will be in my car, and if you cut me off, I'm going to say every name in the book because I'm disappointed with you.
Mm-hmm.
But I will let that fly and move on.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like, but when you do, look, the woman in the supermarket throwing the food because she had to wear a mask, to me, I'm like,
that's absolute regression.
like, you are... Go sit in timeout.
Yeah, no.
Done.
You're gonna throw a little temper tantrum. Go sit in the corner.
and then when you're done, you gotta come back and clean this up. Like, look, we should be able to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know what? Regression. Somebody pop getting the belt. Sorry, let me stop.
Love it. I love that you said pop. That's awesome. You had a pop. I had a granddaddy.
Yeah, right. I did. Granddaddy and pop about to handle.
Oh man, no, they don't play.
And my mom and grandma.
Oh man, yeah.
Or granny, because we had that.
Yeah, no, it was grandmommy and granddaddy for me. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so yeah, we can just keep going and rambling on that one, but I think we have one more question, which is good because I think we're about down to the last 10 to 15 minutes.
And this is for you, right?
I think so.
This is the second one for you, and it is: how can we bridge the history of our past with what we know now, which we almost touched on?
Yeah, we were kind of getting there. Yeah, and it really just. There's just so much to say to that, but I'm just going to go back and reiterate that, I've had people tell me, well, especially in regards to like the Confederate memorials. I'm just going to be honest, memorials. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Hate me if you want memorials. But talking about learning both sides of history in regards to those memorials.
Mm-hmm.
Well, wait a minute. One, history was written by the winners. Okay. Those memorials were put up a decade after, at least, of the Civil War. So there was no memorial. It was, hey, this is the South, and the South will rise again.
Mm-hmm. Which should have never happened.
How many times have we heard that growing up? The South will rise again. Yeah. It was more of a remember your place. Yeah. Not a memorial to how great that general, that soldier, whoever it was. So
the daughters of the Confederates, like.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to knock the organizations.
No, because it helps boast camaraderie. And I understand why the Union or, America said, well, go ahead. Because this is your sense of identity. This gives you a sense of comfort.
Sure.
But the reality is, what really are you promoting?
Right.
Like, are you really like, you know what? We are unified. We want unity. And that's fine, as long as that's what your objective is. Right. Because who doesn't want peace? And if you think about it, if you're still fighting that desire to be like, I just want to know, I got to protect and I got to tear people up.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's totally counterproductive. And
I was about to say it's the antithesis of.
Yeah. Almost it's counterproductive and almost counterintuitive.
It is.
So, but my point being, I guess, is going back to, you want to argue, I say you, I'm using that plural sense.
I know.
I know you know. I know you know. Love you, Monet.
Love you too.
But if you recognize that we are living on one side of history, and that there's a whole other side of history that has not been told, or much less taught, then we need to investigate that. Because we already know what one side of history is. We need to look at the other side and examine that and look at the mistakes that were made then. And, you know, I hear politicians, my goal is to dismantle systemic racism. Okay, well, it's a lofty goal, man. Love it. Fully behind it. How? What are you going to do? What are your steps? Are you going to put in new legislation? Are you going to work to, well, I mean, you really can't undo legislation, so you have to put in new legislation to undo the previous legislation. So,
Yeah.
I mean, so how are you going to do that? So that's my question. So, but I go back to, you and I talk about it, I'm looking at it as racism is more than just your interactions with people. It's a system. And so, but to counter the system, we have to work on an individual level. And so that's where it also starts. We've said it before. We start with listen, understand, and educate. And I think that's where what you and I are trying to do with this show, and again with the people that support us and that understand what we're trying to do. But it ultimately boils down to, and I forgot who quoted it. I hope somebody comments on our Facebook page or Twitter, like who it is I'm quoting to some degree. But if we don't recognize the mistakes of our past, we're doomed to repeat it.
Yeah, that's exactly what that is. That's exactly what that means.
So, and here we are repeating a lot of our mistakes. I mean, what we're seeing in the streets. Yeah, I was about to say, what we're seeing in the streets now is reminiscent of the 60s.
The 60s, and even before that, it was
even
the
before
20s.
that. Yeah.
It's like literally the same arguments over. So it gets to a point where it's like, hold on. This is insanity. And not the act
great
of the
word.
protest.
Oh, great word. Love it. Yeah.
Yeah, but not the act of the protest.
Right.
The actions itself. Like,
yeah.
why are these things still happening? I mean, like, no one should feel that they don't belong to this society, especially if they were born here.
Right.
Speaking the same language, going to the same schools, eating bread. I mean, breaking bread together.
Yeah.
No one in this country. And then things that were wrong, you know what? You can't use the phrase Indian giver anymore. I was a kid who used it. Mm-hmm. And now when we realize what that means, it's like, hold on. Mm-hmm. They didn't do anything wrong when you broke the treaty, and they were like, give me my land back because you lied. And they were like, oh, well, too late. We're on it. And now let's try to massacre y'all some more.
Yeah.
Using people's kindness as a weakness? You can't do that. But we were misinformed. Those things have been ingrained in our. I mean, don't get it twisted. And I'm not a hypocrite. I find the movie Blazing Saddles personally hilarious because it just exposes our ignorance.
Yeah.
But the reality is, to me, it's just funny because it's just, but I don't take it to heart. Like, this is how we really are. No, it's like that's not how it should be. So to me, it's like, and to be able to laugh at it because he just wrote it so brilliantly.
Yeah.
But with that being said, a lot of those things were based on things that were just horrible. These are horrible things that have happened.
Yeah.
And we want to look at movies. We want to look at the Fred Sanford and Son and Archie Bunker and be like, you know what? But see, even Archie Bunker, it was an evolution and change.
Yeah.
So it was like he went from being, McCrudgeon and, just horrible to finding out he had black blood in him and he was identified as black. But being stuck in his ways and it was a show about evolution.
Yeah.
and the generational gap, and then slowly them coming together. I'm getting a lot of congratulations on my phone, so just ignore me.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
Mm-hmm.
For those that don't know, she started a new job today, and it's a phenomenal job, and she more than deserves it, if not more. So, very
Especially
proud
when
of my
your
sister.
brother calls you and he's like, "Oh my God, I almost cut off my thumb." Doing something
Shut up!
dumb.
You have to call me out on public like that. No. I had an accident with a knife earlier, and I called my sister, who's a nurse, and said, "Hey, do I need super glue?" And she said, "Don't do super glue. That's dumb." I'm like, "Okay, my bad."
I didn't say dumb on the phone to your face.
To my face. And are y'all catching this? Just so you're aware. Just so y'all are catching this. I didn't say that over the phone or to your face.
No, I never did that. You know I did.
You had a good,
me and
good laugh.
like,
I was about to say, you had a real good little belly laugh with my wife about it.
We got to diversify them funds to get ready, because he's going to be a piece of work in
That's
about
funny.
40 years.
Yeah, something
all
like
the
that.
sharp things away.
That's funny. Well, hey, so we got about maybe about another. We still got a little bit of time.
Okay, good.
Was there something else that you wanted to bring up?
I know in future casts, I'm feeling like with future podcasts, we're probably going to be discussing a lot of taboo topics even more. And one of which is this beautiful discussion we had.
Oh, yeah.
Night about religion.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was a fun conversation.
I know a lot of people have. And this is one topic that, especially with me being and identifying and being recognized, not just, I mean, it just is what it is, as a Black Jewish woman. And I use race only because it just adds more.
It just adds a layer. It just adds, it just makes the onion even tastier.
It does. And,
sorry, that's the best thing I can, that's the best thing I can come up with it as layers. I mean, knock back to Shrek and just hit.
And Jared being Christian, and a devout Christian, mind you, almost like Chick-fil-A status, closed on Sunday. Like
I try. I really do try. I do honor that day of rest, but Saturday or Sunday, I'm going to take one of those.
Yes, honey.
I'm going to take one of those. So
sundown Saturday to sundown Sunday. That's Jared in the Lord's time. Anyway. So
I love it.
No, he does go to church.
I do go to church, but I honestly I do commit to taking that one day.
Yes,
Saturday or Sunday.
So the day the Lord gave. Come on now.
Absolutely.
You are not observing it correctly if you're not resting.
No, I know.
Anyway,
there's purpose behind it.
God, I love you so much. Cedar, where's my sister at? Okay.
Needless
to say, this was a conversation that really was. It was like, it was very good. And you know why? And I say this like I told you hours earlier. I said, we left the conversation not with, oh my God, now one of us is converting to one thing or another. We left it with respect of self, each our own selves.
Yeah.
And respect of each other.
Absolutely.
And agreeing to disagree.
Absolutely.
And when you have this conversation with someone you care about without trying to slit their throat, I mean, I'm just saying. Because
I got you. No, I got you. Yeah.
It was like, Jared was like, that don't make no sense. I was like, Jared, why are you turning into a Black woman? Let me stop.
Oh, man. Yeah. We keep joking that we need to record our private conversations, but we really don't. We really don't. We really don't.
They really listening to us, but the ones that ain't.
Oh man, I'm over here turning red. Yes.
So those are things I guess we're gonna have to do some more of too. You know.
Right, but I do want to point out. Yeah, no, but I wanted to point out something that you had said about leaving it as respecting the person. And I think that goes back to kind of what we were talking about before is with I'm between you and I'm open to having more different conversations, but you know where I stand about keeping the message focused.
Yes.
We have an agenda. We've set our agenda. We've come up with some really good ideas to keep the conversation as focused as it is on the topic that we want to keep, and that is that all lives cannot matter until Black Lives Matter.
Okay. Period.
Period. And that's a large statement, but I'm going to call that our umbrella statement. So I want to be able to keep our conversations focused underneath that umbrella. And you and I have come up with some good ideas to keep that way, like reading certain books together and talking about.
Like a book club.
Exactly. But going back to just respecting the other person, and that goes back to listen, understand, educate. And
Can you repeat that, please?
Listen, understand, educate. Now, when I say understand, I'm not talking about just I comprehend what you're saying. It's not only do I understand what you're saying, I can sympathize and hopefully even empathize with that. And if I can listen to what you've got to say, and if I can understand it to the point that I'm able to at least sympathize, hopefully empathize with it, then I will be compelled to educate myself.
Yeah.
And that's where I want that. That's my goal. And I realize that we have an audience that agrees with us. But for those of you that agree with us, I'm going to ask that you step out of your own comfort zone and have some of these own conversations with your own circle. If anything, hey, I've just heard of this new podcast. Use us as the bad guys. So,
do you agree with them, or what? Poke the holes, because here's the reality: it's just us talking. It's just us having a conversation. All right. But it's because you're an educator, and I'm a nurturer. You know, it's like we need this guidance we need this to better our society.
Well, and by this, I don't think you mean just you and I think you mean the conversation as a whole, that this needs to happen more and more on a broader scale, and it needs to expand out. And I totally agree with that. And hence my imploring of our audience and our fan and our so
whether you have a podcast or not,
challenge yourself, look for that opportunity to speak truth. And that's another conversation that we could be having, is in regards to truth, because you and I have recently had this conversation, and we've only got a couple minutes, so I don't want to tail off too much. Maybe a teaser to a future episode. But the idea of truth, I've heard a lot of, well, that's just your truth. Your truth isn't my truth. Well, here's the problem with that. There is either absolute truth or no truth. There cannot be a universal truth, because then there is no truth. If what I say is true conflicts with what you say is true, then there is no truth.
Period.
It's as simple as that.
It out.
Yeah. So that being said, that's a whole other conversation that we could have at another time. But anyway, I think we got a couple more minutes to wrap this up. For our fans who dig us, please join our conversation. Feel free to leave some comments. Feel free to send an email, private message us, whatever have you. You can find us on Twitter, find us on Facebook. Please join our conversation. If you're new to the episode and you have questions, by all means, again, join the conversation. Let us know. This is not just between Monet and I. So you're about to say something, Monet. Go ahead.
No, I'm saying, I mean, we would love to exchanges with people.
Absolutely.
And not like in a form of a text. One of my favorite episodes was with your brother. And he's a conservative
business
Trump
owner.
Supporter.
Yeah,
business owner. And it was very cordial. And it was like, when we were like, they got to a point where it was like, he was like, no, I don't agree with that. And I got to a point and I was like, no, I don't agree with that. But it was very respectful.
Yep. And that was the feedback I got as well, even from my brother. So he enjoyed being on the episode, on the show.
And I would love to have him back again.
It would be a good time. So hit us up. Our email is TNTWAWITHMJ. So that's TNT with MJ at gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, on Twitter. You can find our podcast on YouTube, on Google, on Spotify, on Spreaker. Still working on trying to get on Apple. That's a little trickier than I'd intended or I'd expected, but that's Apple. I'm sorry.
It's true.
Sorry, that's just a personal knock. I'm not an Apple fan.
He's Android, y'all.
I'm an Android guy. My wife is Apple. I will say that. Just throwing that out there. Just
I was like, me and Cedar are Apple.
Don't knock me yet.
No. You have more of your followers than you have Apple followers, so we understand. We are. You don't have to be that smart to have an Apple phone, I'll put it. But Android, you do have to have three. Because I had to dumb myself down. No, I'm saying I had to dumb myself down when I got my Apple phone. I was like, that's it? There's no extra? And now, like, my son's like, Mom, just go through this. I'm like, I can't. No. Too much thought to deal with your Android.
Yeah. No, there's
your
a lot
graphics are better.
Easily connect to Google. No. All right. For those that didn't see it, she sneered at that comment. So just saying.
So true.
All right. So what are you going to leave us with tonight, Monet?
Well, just hoping that everyone continues to love each other. Please find the goodness. Really, I have been deleting a lot of people off my Facebook because the moment I see the childish, like, hatred rhetoric, I'm like, you're not important to me. Click. And now I actually feel like a weight off of really, Instagram, all the negative people. And it's not like a cancel culture. It's the fact that let's talk about unity. Let's talk about bringing each other together. Let's talk about resolution because we want resolution. When people are like, I wanted the way before COVID started. No, none of these Black Lives Matter. And I'm like, well, delete. Because guess what? This is eye-opening. That don't mean I hate you. I just need people to think positively and focus on a united America, a United States of America, a united force of goodness and kindness. And actually, our adversaries should be evil people. That's it. So goodness, kindness, and love. And what's the three words that we should continue to add to our podcast?
Listen, understand, educate.
Listen, understand, and educate.
All right.
Bye.
That's it. Till next time.
Thank you. Till next time.